Picking the right iPad for me was a decision that I didn't take lightly. It felt like I watched hundreds of YouTube videos to try and find somebody I could personally relate to, someone that wasn't too technical and someone who would be able to give me some insight into their decision making to hopefully impact mine. Hi, I'm Andy, I'm a UX designer, and in this video I want to talk about how I went from being completely indecisive about which iPad to get to finally making a decision, and one that I have made without any regrets. People often ask me why I chose an iPad over, say, a MacBook Air or a MacBook Pro. And the main reason I've done that is because I've recently bought a Mac Studio with M2 Max. Now, obviously that is an absolutely incredible computer. It's rapid, it does everything I need, and it's my main computer, and I don't want to take that away from the Mac Studio. So this is partly the reason why I chose an iPad over a MacBook. With a MacBook, it would become far more useful for me around the house, so I would potentially start using that more than my Mac Studio, and that's what I didn't want to do, because obviously I've spent £2,500 or whatever it was at the time of purchase on the Mac Studio, and that needs to be used. So I just don't want to fall into the trap of then buying a MacBook and using that instead of the Mac Studio. The downside to the Mac Studio obviously is that it's not portable. So this is where I have now been looking for a more portable device that I can still utilize for certain tasks. I also really like the smaller footprint the iPad has on things like train, fold down tables, plane fold down tables, even on my desk. I don't have the additional peripherals like the Magic Keyboard. I just use the Logitech MX series, so I've got the keyboard and the mouse, and I just connect Bluetooth with those as and when I need to. Whereas with a MacBook, obviously your keyboard and trackpad is permanently attached, and it doesn't always work in those situations when you don't have much desk space. And yes, I am fully aware that the iPad Pro models are in the price range similar to that of MacBook Airs, but you don't get the same user experience, and that's something that's kind of drawn me more to having the iPad. It's a bit more of a fun device that I really enjoy. The iPad also gives me that additional user experience of being able to use the touchscreen, which you obviously don't get with a MacBook, but it's brilliant for things like content consumption and note-taking, and also, answering a few emails. And the iPad obviously still gives me that portability that I would normally get with a MacBook without losing any of the power. The M4 iPad Pro can do most of the tasks that I need from what I'd normally do on the Mac Studio, so things like photo retouching or working on my small business in the background. I can use the iPad in a portable way to still work on those things without having to do too much heavy work, which I would normally be doing on the Mac Studio. So I'm mainly going to be using the iPad for working on the go. This isn't going to be work that is going to be too heavy duty. So I mainly use Figma, which is design software that I use for designing websites and apps. And there is a really great app called Figurative, which allows you to utilize the Figma app, which you get on a desktop in the iPad world. So that's no problem for me. That solves a problem where I can utilize that app out of the house when I'm traveling, so I can still get work done in that space. And I'm also going to be using the Affinity apps, so Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo. And I do normally use the Adobe Suite, so the Adobe Creative Cloud collection of apps on my desktop computer, but I'm just finding the monthly fees on those apps are getting a little bit expensive over the course of a year, so I'm just going to try switching over to Affinity. So I may do another video about that just to let you know how that goes. And also, we can't forget the main reason that most people buy an iPad, and that is for content consumption. So I will be using that as well for things like Netflix, Apple TV, or some light gaming, just for journeys, or when I'm just bored at home, just to fill my time or take a break from work. So those are going to be my main uses for the iPad. The iPad I had before this new iPad Pro was an iPad Pro. It was the 2015 or 2016 first iPad Pro with Apple Pencil. That device was actually brilliant at the time, but over the course of 9 years are we in now, it's actually started to become very slow. It doesn't support any further software updates. It doesn't charge properly anymore. it was a very heavy device and not all that portable, particularly if you are taking a work computer around with you as well. So yeah, it was a device that I've been quite happy to upgrade. I went into the Apple store just to have a look at the different models of iPad Pro. The 13-inch immediately grabbed my eye. The screen still was big enough that I was used to with the 12.9-inch iPad that I had before, but the overall size of the iPad was a lot smaller than the 12.9-inch iPad that I come from. So that was already an appealing attribute to have, because even though the screen size is technically slightly larger, the overall size of the device was a lot smaller, and obviously the weight is a big difference as well. So all in all, in the hand, the iPad Pro 13 is an improvement on what I've currently got. The 11-inch iPad Pro looked incredibly compact, which also was really appealing. It had such a small form factor. It looked like once it was folded together, it would just pop right into your bag. It's no bigger than a book, but the compactness of the whole overall device was very appealing. And this was something that I was trying to comprehend, whether that would be a big enough selling point for this device for me. I think in the Apple store, I must have spent about half an hour just going from side to side between the 13-inch iPad Pro, then the 11-inch iPad Pro, then I'd go back to the 13-inch iPad Pro, back to the 11-inch, and I was going back and forth like this, trying to envisage which one I wouldn't regret if I got it. And this was something that I found difficult, because I was conscious that I would be spending a lot of money, and what I didn't want to do was make the wrong decision, get home and then think, oh no, this isn't for me, it's not going to work. And I know the good thing with Apple is you do get that 14-day window where you can just return it back to the store without any questions, but I just was really conscious that I didn't really want to be doing that. I wanted to just make the right decision off the bat. So one of the things I did, which I'd learned off a TikTok account, and I forget which one it was, I'll try and remember and put it in the comments, but this guy used a method called playing the tape. And basically what you do is you play the tape of that event and what you perceive to be the outcome of that, and that then helps you make better decisions. So I was trying at the time, stood in the Apple store, to imagine paying for and taking home each of the iPads and envisioning how I would feel when I got home with that iPad, and that ultimately led me to the decision that I made. So after all the deliberation, the iPad I chose was the 13-inch iPad Pro, and I chose this because the screen, as I mentioned earlier, is slightly bigger than what I previously had, but the overall footprint of the product was a lot smaller, thinner and lighter. So all of those factors together meant that I was still upgrading my device without losing any of what I was used to and what I enjoyed, which was the bigger display, because that works better for me for if I wanted to do any design work on there. I have a lot more room on canvas over the 11-inch where things could just be a little bit too compact, particularly when you've got your toolbars that run down the sides. So that was part of the decision making of what made me go more for the 13-inch. And one last reason for going with the 13-inch is because I like to use it as a second screen for my workflow. So I might have notes on there, or I might have some emails that I've got open. It just has enough screen real estate for me to be able to see things clearly, because I'm usually sat at a bit of a distance from the iPad when I'm at my desk. So the bigger screen obviously just helps with not having to squint to see stuff. But yeah, that's the other reason why I chose the 13-inch. I didn't end up buying the Magic Keyboard or the pencil at the time of purchase, and the reason for that was I just wanted to basically see how I was going to use this iPad when I got it home. As much as I do love digital art, creating stuff in that format and note-taking, I don't actually, from my previous iPad, I don't feel like I did that enough to warrant buying the Apple Pencil. So I'm going to just see over time how I am using this iPad. If I am going to need to be using it for note-taking or creating some digital art, then obviously that's going to make it more of a selling point for me. But I had the Apple Pencil with my previous iPad, and to be honest, I don't really feel like I used it that much. So I'm just questioning whether it'd be a waste of money for me to get another one. I didn't buy the Magic Keyboard because I don't like that form factor. When you have the case open, you always have the keyboard there. I went with just the Folio, which you could buy from Apple for £99, and I like that it's just on a very small footprint. It fits a lot nicer on the desk. It's easier to use when you're traveling, and as I said, I just used the Logitech keyboard and mouse whenever I need it. So I still get all the protection of the Folio case, but also when I open the iPad, I don't have to then always see the keyboard and trackpad, because that's not what what I want with the device. So that's it, the 13-inch iPad Pro. I've had it now for 3 weeks, and honestly, it has been an incredible device for me and what I use it for. It's fitted in perfectly with the Mac Studio. It gives me that flexibility for taking the device with me if I wanted to continue doing some light work on the go, and also it's brilliant for the content consumption side of it. And all in all, like, really pleased with the purchase I made. I don't have any regrets, which I'm thankful for, especially with the price of the device. But let me know what you think in the comments if you have had the same problems with me with being completely indecisive over which one to get, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye.